Hi, and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project Manager podcast for Sunday, the 2nd of October. This is your host, Nigel Creaser. And today we have Victoria McKenna, the Fashionable Project Manager. Okay, news. What's going on? Well, to be honest, today is I think it's TCS London Marathon. So it's a little bit of a marathon special for this one. No reason why other than I'm interested. And Victoria, who is my guest, is actually running the London Marathon today. It's quite serendipitous, as I described it on LinkedIn, that the dates that I'd scheduled for her interview to be published coincided with her run in London, because at the time I didn't even know she was running London. So if you're listening to this on Sunday, she's running it. If you're listening to this beyond Sunday, she will have finished it now, and I'm sure she will have smashed it. So yeah, that was quite an interesting coincidence. Life has these coincidences, doesn't it? What's been going on with me? You can probably hear I have a little bit of a cold. Kind of knocked me about a little bit in the early part of the week, in the back end of last weekend. But what's been going on? Mainly, our focus has been around my girls at the moment. Last weekend was my eldest's 16th birthday, on the Monday, which God only knows where those 16 years have gone. It seems a long time. It seems like it's forever, and it seems like 5 minutes. I'm sure other parents out there have the same experience, which is crazy. And then today, also on the 2nd, is my youngest's birthday, and she's 11. So again, another bit of a milestone, moving up into big schools next year and things like that. So yeah, a lot of focus on getting parties ready, getting presents ready, all that sort of stuff, which all of those items in themselves are projects, as we all know. Event planning is one of the hardest parts of project management, I think, because it is one of those things where it all comes together in that big culmination, all those pieces that fit together, sometimes only fit together for those few hours. And coordinated a bunch of kids to get to somewhere to have a party, getting cakes done, getting food prepared, all those things. We use all these tools of project management all the time, and delegation, etc. So yes, I think maybe that's another idea for a book, Kids Parties, the Project Management Method, but I'm not sure how many people would be interested in that. What else have I got to talk about? I read a fantastic article just before coming in to record this. I'm recording this on Saturday, from a good friend Jonathan Kesselfell, on becoming more sendatsu. A great article, set of 4 articles. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's about becoming a sendatsu, which is about leadership, and John's done a YouTube video on it and a couple of articles, and I highly recommend both. It talks about sendatsu who were guides in Japan, I think it was, who would lead people through pilgrimages through an area of woodland. You can tell I took it in really well. I think I took the message in rather than the story better than anything else. And they fulfilled 4 different kind of ways of leading people through these areas, and it wasn't all about a forced march kind of thing. It was about, there's some teaching in there, there's coaching in there, there's pioneering in there, and it really interesting way, a little bit enlightening, a little bit challenging in thinking, and really applicable to today and the leadership that we all need to be doing, because the strength of leadership these days within our projects is changed, and the expectation in the way that we change it used to be very command and control, but that has changed significantly now. An expectation from people and good leaders is different. So heartily recommend it. He talks about Star Wars as well, which is great. So always catches my eye. That's worth having a read. I think that's mainly all I wanted to chat about today. Yeah, I think I'll just let you get on and listen to the fascinating story of Victoria McKenna. So enjoy and speak later. So today I want to welcome Victoria McKenna to the show. Born in the 1980s, she was quite a naughty child, apparently. We may find out a little bit about that. Very artistic and quite sensitive. She never actually knew what she wanted to do in life for a very long time, and not until 2014. And from leaving university, she followed the path into the world of Telecoms sales, which was the start of a long and enjoyable career, finishing up as a project manager, which she loved. As a young adult, for years, she dreamt of designing bespoke clothes for women, but didn't have the faith to bring that to fruition. Learned how to power dress in a corporate world and became obsessed with waistcoats. I love a waistcoat as well. And she still is obsessed with it. And she was obsessed with looking serious, but with an edge. In 2014, however, her life changed. And after a period of stress, she had a stroke. And we'll touch on that, I'm sure. And life stopped. She lost her career and took a total of 2 years to properly recover after heart surgery. And if there's ever time to take a long, hard look at yourself, as she says on her bio, it was during that period. So the brand was born. She decided to move into what she dreamed of as a kid. So Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
A little bit of a butchered intro there, which isn't unusual on this. And I'm just trying to find you back on my screen because I'm trying to get the other bits that I was reading on you. So apologies for the tour. So like I say, welcome to the show. And how are you doing?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, good.
So let's start at the beginning, shall we? Where were you born? Where are you from?
Okay, so I was actually born in Aberdeen in Scotland because my dad was in the RAF. So that's why we were up there.
Nice. And where are you living now?
So now I'm in Oswestry in Shropshire, and this is where my family are now.
Brilliant. Obviously. And for those who don't know on the show, this is down the road, and I'm a born and bred Oswestrian. And I saw Victoria's post on LinkedIn on something on one of the, I can't remember whose post it was. I think it was Adrian's, wasn't it? I saw that and project manager. Oh, there's a candidate for my interview, someone local. Most people I've interviewed have either been thousands of miles away or at least hundreds. So that's cool. That's really good. So you mentioned family and friends. What's the family situation with you?
Well, I actually had a lockdown baby.
Oh, right. Nice.
So, yeah, a little surprise there, and she's 15 months old now. So.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's brilliant. So you've got a major project there then.
Yeah. It's taken its toll as well because I had her when I was 40 as well, which is shock to the system.
That's a change to lifestyle, a change to life and everything, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like you've gone through quite a bit of upheaval in the past few years then from that point of view, and also from 2014 when you changed careers. And I know that now you have the Victoria McKenna label, and you've got the I'm going to get it wrong, Shroppy Designs, Shroppy t-shirts.
Shroppy t-shirts, yeah.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, which it's again a very different change to the project management, but I imagine there's probably quite a few parallels we'll draw in the conversation there. But as I mentioned in reading out your bio there, you you're saying you were born up in Aberdeen. Did you grow up there, or were you traveling around a lot with your dad? And when you did, wherever you did grow up, I probably answered the question, but what did you want to be?
Well, we obviously lived on quite a few military bases, and we only stayed in the UK.
Oh, right, yeah.
So sort of up and down the country, a lot in the south. And then my dad finally got a job in Shrewsbury. Right. It was one of his last postings. So we decided to move the family up. So it's a lot of well, a few schools, I'd say 4 or 5 different schools.
Yeah. And so what did you want to be? Was it always a fashion designer, or was there something else?
No, I actually had this thing about being a judge.
Oh, wow.
That was what I really wanted. Thought I could, I thought I can do that.
Yeah.
I really want to be a judge. So that was why I chose law at university. I did complete the law degree. I mean, I completed it, but quite badly. Because my heart wasn't really in it, and it was not what I was good at. So I was always very arty.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make the money, does it? That's what your parents say anyway,
Yeah, and I think also I think it's changing, isn't it, as well? Like in the last, if I'm a bit older than you, I'm not going to say how much, but growing up, artists and musicians and actors and eye fluting things were not things you could make a career out of. That wasn't a proper job, was it? And whereas now I think it's kind of, I think maybe it's us growing up as leading our kids. It's kind of, you kind of go, well, whilst it's not for me, yeah, if you want to make money as a YouTuber, you can see how you can do it. You can entertain, you can create more. I suppose it's open to more people as well. You can be a creative and sell it yourself. You don't have to go to a gatekeeper who chooses whether you sort of like anoints you as good enough as a creative, whether it be in the fashion industry, whether it be in the music industry or anything. You're in that position nowadays where I think, and I'm glad it's that way, that the gatekeepers are not as in control as they probably used to be.
That's exactly, hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. If you're going to do an art degree, you were going to become a teacher, weren't you? That was the point of it most of the time. That was the you're going to be an art teacher, are you? Because that was the only career that someone there, rather than creating a £160 million NFT art piece that you could do now. It's interesting.
What you can do now is just so impressive. All different angles of design that you can do, and amazing.
Because just thinking about that, is you like with your t-shirt stuff as well, you could end up doing, and your clothes design, you can embed NFTs in those, and then they'd be unique individual pieces of clothing, wouldn't they, as well?
I know, imagine that.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like nowadays you'll make a thing, and if it was mass produced, it's mass produced, isn't it? And you think about it, it's like the books, isn't it? Your first edition of a book, someone could buy the first edition of one of your clothes, and no one else would have the first edition.
Yeah.
It adds a lot. I'm don't tell anyone that. I had that idea. I'm sure someone's doing it, but if you do it and you make your millions, buy me a pint at the Stonehouse. That'd be great. So you went along, you did your law degree. You didn't come out with what maybe you was hoping to. I suppose that's one of those things that I know it can really change your outlook on life through that period of going. I know I was about to go into college, and a friend of mine who left school, what was he doing? Oh, he's doing A-level accountancy. And I said, the hell are you doing that for? It's boring. I was doing business studies, came out of there and started working as an accountant straight after that, and that was in a period of 2 years. It was kind of like how you're things, and I imagine it's a similar sort of thing. You've gone in, you're going to be a judge, you're looking to be a lawyer, and then you get partway through your studies and realize this isn't what I really am, and kind of going against the grain sort of thing.
I totally disagreed with a lot of the things that sit within the law. I couldn't get my head around them. It is what it is. It's not always black and white, obviously, but I just didn't agree with some of the things and the processes, and I thought, I can't do this. I can't bring myself to work like that. So I left, and I got a job as a waitress, as you do when you sort of leave education and you're a bit lost. So you just go and get a job locally, don't you? And then I sort of floated into a sales job with the Telecoms network hardware distributor. It was
Right, yeah.
a local one, and it just sort of went from there. And then I worked for one of their suppliers inadvertently. I left them, worked for a supplier, and then I realized where my strengths really lied, because I was ebbing towards quite technical based job roles.
Yeah.
That was what interested me, not sales. I'm terrible on a phone trying to sell something. It's really hard.
It is a hard job, that, yeah.
And people can sniff it a mile off if you're not convincing, or if you don't believe it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can tell in your voice. So then I thought, I researched what jobs there were in telecoms, because I'd fallen into this career path of routers and DSLAMs and all these man techie things. Even though half the office was female.
Yeah.
But and then I found, there's this job called a project manager, and apparently they're really organized, and I think I can do that. So then I sort of put the feelers out to see, who I knew that might be able to give me a hand getting that kind of job. And actually I interviewed for the first one I interviewed for, I got that job.
Brilliant.
No, I had no experience in project management, had no qualifications, no nothing, didn't know what Prince 2 was. I'd be like, who's Prince 2?
I think a lot of us did that when we first heard of it. It took many years for me to realize what the heck that was.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's where it just went from there, and I absolutely loved it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So what?
But sorry, go on.
I was going to say was with getting in that role, because obviously you get. I'm going to say that I've done some work within networks and telecoms myself, and there is a lot of niche knowledge around the equipment, the hardware, the language, and it's very, very. If you look in IT in general, you kind of the software stuff kind of follows similar sort of things, whereas when you start getting into plugging bits of wire in and open up firewalls and all that sort of stuff, and doing all the I forget the name of it now. It's the one where you decide what traffic goes through it, and you have some of it will be voice, some of it will be data, and some of it's whatever, and balancing all that out. That as a project manager, having come from software, that fried my head for a long time, because it was trying to work out what was going on. And I think and a lot of the time it was, again, a different style of project management, because it's a lot of on-site installation kind of things from what I remember. And it is, as you say, about being organized. If you're organized and understand what you're doing is the key. Understand what the engineers are meant to be doing, I think, is part of it, because you can get bamboozled quite easily, regardless of whether you superstar project manager with all the qualifications in the world. I think that engineering bias and understanding of all the bits of kit and how they stick together, to whatever level, is quite important. That's probably, maybe that's one of the reasons why they went, yes, we need you, because we knew it by then, didn't you, I suppose?
Well, yes and no. So I knew sort of how a network worked, what you needed for it to physically come together back to the exchange, because we were selling a lot of that equipment, but I didn't know anything about the wiring. I mean, we learnt about it, but learning it and then seeing it in its spot in an exchange, and then imagining how that goes out from the exchange out to the street cabs, the street cab to the sites, how many sites there are. And that was a whole eye-opener. And I spent, because I was only in my mid-20s, I was very motivated and had loads of energy. Don't know. I am very motivated, but I don't have a lot of energy.
No, I know that feeling.
So I spent a lot of time going out to site, sitting with the engineers. I even did some of the punching down onto the equipment of the wires, so you're getting the pairs in, and you could just see how complicated it really was, in the sense that if one tiny element didn't make that connection, it impacted other things.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole quality issue, and then people don't start paying the bill, and then, you know, customers not paying, supplier can't pay the engineer has to go back, it's more time on.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was just like, if the times where it was an installation went perfectly were like dream days, but you know, things happen, tires go pop on the motorway, and broadband is so necessary. I mean, back then when I was 25, it was Tiscali and Opal Telecom, which became Carphone Warehouse, so it's that many years ago now. Those were the original big networks on TV, weren't they? And the well-known ones. So and this job that I got, it was for the Opal Telecom rollout, which was Carphone Warehouse, and it was all eyes on, and I was absolutely terrified, but you know, because I was quite cocky and a little bit arrogant, because, you know, because of my age.
Yeah, I was going to say, what
in my 20s, everybody's a little bit arrogant, aren't they? Because you have to be.
Yeah, you need to be.
I know. Yeah. So you know, I just thought, well, this is going to be a breeze. Oh my God, it was probably 2 years solid of getting up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, making sure I was at the office bang on 8 o'clock or whatever, and then working till midnight, out on site. Sometimes, you know, getting calls from engineers, being on, you know, we had a rota where the PMs were on call, so you'd have to take calls. They couldn't get into an exchange because they were doing a night job, and they said, oh, it took its toll, really did.
Yeah, I imagine it would. That length of time being on, switched on and doing is a lot. That's a lot to do, and it does. The body and the mind can only do that for so long, can it?
Yeah, but it was it was the best experience I could ever have been given, really.
Yeah. So you just said about we talk about the terminology and things like that, and you said about the exchange, the road. Did you say road cabs and punching down wires?
Cabs, yeah.
What do those mean? I'm sure there's people sitting there going, that sounds interesting. What is that? Is it when you say the roadside cabs, are those things we all see where you have the open reach guy sat by looking like he's trying to fix something? That's what that is, right? Okay. And when you say punching down the wires, is that the little wires they've got in there and they're poking around doing stuff?
Yeah, and that goes on in the exchange as well.
Yeah.
So that's the BT exchanges. That's where all the big equipment goes.
Yeah. So we get the massive cables that go around the country, and then that, what they call it, the local loop kind of stuff that hooks off the end and things like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I remember being involved in something when I was working for Oracle, I think it was, and we were working to BT, and it was around the local loop unbundling around that time.
Oh, right. Yes.
So,
well, it was all that.
Yeah.
The LLU. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was around that time and I can't remember we had some consultants working within BT that were supporting something to do with the local loop unbundling. I just remember all these phrases at the time. I had no clue what they meant. All I knew was I was down in Leavesden where they were filming Harry Potter across the road, so I was told, and I was going, oh, that's quite interesting. But that was oh, wow. So that was a lot of high pressure work. And did that carry on through your project management career and things like that? Or was it was it always full on and that kind of projects?
Pretty much, yeah. I did work for a company that sent me to Australia, to Sydney, and I'd only been there a month, I think.
Wow.
A couple of weeks or something, and they said, oh, we need you to go to Sydney. And I
said,
where? Where's Sydney? And they said, Australia? And I said, what? What do you mean? I've only just started. Yeah, so I had a stint. I think I worked in Sydney for about a month, and then with that same company I went to South Africa.
Wow.
We had a project out there that was really hard, and then I worked twice for a company that was based in Cardiff and Reigate. So that was the bulk of my career, really.
Cool. So thinking about that, so we kind of know how you got into being a project manager. You kind of said, I want to do that. I found that's what I wanted to do. What would you consider to be the first project that you managed in your head? Is kind of right. That was the first one that I went, hang on, I'm in charge of this. Tell us a little bit about it.
So, well, that was my first job. So that was the Opal Telecom.
Yeah. So I was doing that whole thing you just talked about with the early mornings and the late evenings and all that.
Yes, and I lived in Shropshire at the time, but the company that I worked for was in Swindon, so I lived in a hotel for about 7 months.
Oh, geez.
During the week, and then I was traveling to Warrington a lot.
Right.
For project meetings, so it was full on.
Yeah, that sounds full on. So thinking maybe a bit broader on some of the other projects, the question I normally ask on this is around what the biggest project you managed was, and kind of biggest is where I kind of talk about it as what's most significant, not necessarily in money, in number of people, in, I don't know, whatever, boxes installed or whatever, but what was the one that you think actually that was the beast, that was the one that either you felt that you made the most difference in, or it just was big?
It was probably one of my last projects that I'd worked on. I won't mention any names, but it was for a big council, but it involved a lot of schools, and obviously that's sensitive.
Yeah.
Quite stressful for everyone involved, including, head teachers, and but knowing that things were getting delivered to where they needed to be, and it was connecting schools, and and things like fire and rescue as well came in, on sort of side projects and things like that within the counties. So it was really satisfying, when things completed off, because that is vital.
Yeah.
I'm not saying other networks aren't, but in the grand scheme of things, they use these things every day for learning, for saving lives and things like that. So
make a massive difference to society, isn't it? It's kind of, I was chatting to someone not long ago, and they kind of realized that what they were doing was in a similar vein. They were doing it with NHS and doing things with the NHS, and it's kind of, it wasn't so much what it was the impact that it could have because of it touching society. And that's the thing, is if you're helping a couple hundred kids, a couple of thousand kids to get a better and more access to education, well, how much more influence can you get? And then if you're helping the fire service and people like that to react quicker and have a better service, well, you're creating lives and saving lives, aren't you? And through your change that you're making there. And that's what sometimes I forget it, and we forget it as project managers, that those changes might be for an industry or for a business, but at the end of the day, there's a member of society that's going to benefit from it, or thousands of members of society. And it's kind of all talk about the fact that we're changing the future, we're making the future when we're doing those sort of things. And that's where it can be. That's where you can draw that mega satisfaction from. Yeah. It's not just get away from looking at the details of it's a bit of software code or it's a bit of hardware being plugged in. It makes massive difference. So thinking about that, that project or other projects, what was the biggest screw up that you've made when you were in your project management career? And more importantly, I suppose, actually, I should have asked that on the other one. The other project is what you learned from it. So you've got a wry smile there across your face. So I'm guessing it's something you're not sure what to say, or you've got something interesting.
Biggest screw ups. It's got to be something like, I don't know, forgetting to. I can only think of really maybe a couple of occasions that it happened, but maybe forgetting to order a piece of equipment. That obviously is a vital, thing.
What did you?
You know, these things are always overcome, and you just have to get it sorted. I mean, there are countless times where I can think I've made mistakes.
Yeah.
But as soon as you realise you've made a mistake, you go into that hot sweat and you think, oh my God, I've really got to fix this now because nobody's going to save me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that one where you kind of, with those scenarios, you've got to go, most of the time you're going to put your hands up and go, I've messed up.
I learned that.
Yeah. Because if you try and hide something like that or bullshit it, you get caught out, don't you?
You always get found out. I learned that through experience. Just always just come clean straight away as soon as you know, even if it's 6 a.m. in the morning and you've just woken up and realized what you've done, just send the email, quickly, just send it on your phone, send it to the customer and say, I've just read, and then it's bad, but it's never as bad as, Yeah,
I think the thing is most people recognize that we're all fallible. We all make mistakes, and actually, to be frank, if you're dealing with someone who doesn't recognize you've made a mistake, you've made an error, you'll try and fix it, and if they can't accept that or treat you in any different way, well, actually, you probably don't want them as a customer or as a manager, do you? You kind of, you're in the wrong place in those scenarios, because not everyone's perfect. I mean, I've got. When you look in the project management arena these days around the agile thing, around failing fast and learning quickly, and that's you've got to allow people. And I was reading something, must have been yesterday. There's a diagram of psychological safety and psychological threat or something like that. I can't remember what the other one was. And that whole point of this starts at the fact of being able to make a mistake without reprimand, without being battered or whatever. I can't remember what it said, but then there was a sort of a feedback loop that kind of said, if you've made a mistake, then you look at lessons learned, then you make your changes, then that encourages innovation, but then you'll get more mistakes. But it's a positive circle of getting there. You do something, you mess it up. It's a feedback loop, and keep that feedback loop going. But what happens is if people get battered and not allowed to learn and not forgiven for making that mistake, obviously if someone does the same mistake over and over and over again, well, either they're in the wrong role or there's more, or the education's not right. But that ability to fail, fix that failure, learn from that failure, fix that failure, and use that as part of that cycle. If you stop it, well, people stop taking risks. And if you stop taking risks, you stop doing innovation. If you stop innovating, your business dies.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's where, it's learning from screw ups and confessing to screw ups is so important. So obviously swap that around to a little bit more positive now on something. Now, there's a couple of lines I've got on mine. I kind of combine them now because quite often, and maybe it's the last conversation, it's around what your proudest project delivery was and what your proudest project achievement that wasn't necessarily about the delivery itself, and thinking about your projects and how you dealt with those.
So my proudest project delivery.
Yeah. Which one you thought, I did well on that. I was brilliant. And maybe on the other side of it is it maybe, or as I say, something that you said, right, I'm that whole something within that was proud, whether it was coaching someone, solving a problem, or the end result, as we talked about with the schools or something like that, which what made you just stand there and think, yeah, I'm proud of myself?
Probably back to one of my earliest ones, really. So the Tiscali network, after I'd pretty much completed the Opal Telecom one, they sort of moved me sideways onto the Tiscali one because it'd been such a long running project. I know they'd had a few project managers along the way, and people leave if they're on contracts. So I remember getting involved with that, and I didn't finish it by any means because it was such a it went on and
huge,
on. But picking that up, and I think I did a really good job tidying up some messes, and I don't know if that's because there's been so many people involved that things like just the documentation was messy and things were not in order, and I just went in and I tidied it up, and I got great pleasure from doing that. And it's just not some people's bag, is it? But I was so proud of that.
I can understand that. I know being able to look at something that is not organized, not coordinated, and not in a structured manner, and I've been in similar situations, because it's kind of the basics of a project. Having a project that is the thing I talk about is around projects not feeling as if they've got a rhythm to them. It's all zooming back to this different, rather it should be just kind of something regular about it, knowing that you're hitting the mark and hitting the beat all the way through it. And sometimes it is about that organization, because I'm putting structure in the governance and the basics. And I'm not someone who thinks that we should have thousands and thousands of pages of governance documentation. I firmly believe people deliver projects, not process. But there's a minimum you need there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and it's almost like common sense, a lot of it. But it's obviously the things like the methodologies do teach you sort of how to hone in that common sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that if you sit back and read through the methodology of going, right, okay, so what are you going to do on a project? Oh, well, we're going to start it. Right. We're going to have a way of starting it. Well, of course you would. You talk to all the people, you work out what you need. Well, of course you would. And you break it down into, take all the jargon out, throw that, all the different jargons that we get in there, and talk about what you're going to do. It's kind of, well, we're going to work out what we're going to do. Well, we probably need to know why we're going to do it. We're going to work out who needs to do it, and we work out when we're going to get it done by. And then we're going to measure how we're doing against all those things. And then we look at things that might stop us. It's actually really quite conceptually, it's very simple, and there is a lot. But we do complicate it a lot. But if you, but sometimes it's by everyone in an industry. You understand the jargon, you learn it, and it becomes default. And actually, you're still doing that same thinking, that simple thinking, but with the different tools to do them. And then the tools become the focus, not the thinking and the thought processes. And it just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of, we get tied up in whether it should be this form or that bloody form, and it doesn't matter. It's a risk. Does it matter whether we've mitigated, whether we've done it? Well, it doesn't really matter. Is it going to stop the project? No. Right. Okay, good. Let's move on. Is it going to stop the project? Yes. Right. Let's do something about it. It doesn't really matter on some of the classifying it as a certain people, process, or whatever. Just sometimes bringing it up that level makes life a lot easier, I think, especially for people who aren't project managers. And for the majority of the time on a project, there aren't many project managers, is there? We're in a minority. So using our language and our terminology doesn't necessarily help the people delivering it. Yeah, it kind of alienates people sometimes as well, I think, is kind of you going, and it's how you get that across and get people to contribute. Well, I hope you enjoyed that first part of the interview with Victoria. And next week she'll be back and we'll hear the second part. Fascinating rest of the interview, I know. So thank you very much for listening and look after yourself. Wow, you made it this far. I'm guessing that you enjoyed the show if you have. Or maybe you've just left it playing in the background and forgot it was on. But if you did enjoy it and you're inclined to, I'd be delighted if you could share the show with your colleagues. Discoverability with podcasts is quite difficult, especially with a niche one like this. But sharing with your colleagues and letting them have a chance to listen to these fantastic guests would be brilliant. If you've got time, a review on whatever platform you listen to it on would be great too, especially if it's a 5-star one. Again, that makes it easier for people to discover the show when they're searching on there, because the comments raise it up the old search engine optimization on all the different tools. If you are feeling flush, I have a couple of ways you could contribute. One is Patreon, Patreon/Sunday Lunch PM, and you can donate some money to the podcast that way, or you can jump along to my website, nigelcreaser.com, www.nigelcreaser.com, and click on the link to the shop, and in there you've got all my books that I've created in the varying different guises, a number of different ways you can grab a copy of those. And down the bottom I've got my guests' books, so everyone who's been on here, if they've had a book, I've got a link to their book in there, and Amazon give me a little bit back for when someone buys from them. But more importantly, if you come back next time and listen, I'll be delighted. So I'll leave you alone and let you get on with your day now. Thank you. Bye. Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.